Ray and I'm a Borough Councillor for the Tattenham Corner and Preston Ward, and it is my complete honour to be the Mayor of Reigate and Banstead this year. Firstly, I would like to say a big thank you to all the volunteers in Reigate and Banstead area who have contributed greatly to our community during these unprecedented times. Volunteers Week has never been more important, and this year's theme, A Time to Say Thank You, is something we should all reflect on. And it will also be the theme that will run through my mayoral year. Due to the determination and selfless acts of local volunteers, the collective response to the pandemic is something we as a borough can all be very proud of. I would like to say thank you on behalf of the many charities and organisations that volunteers support. Without your time and commitment, many of these organisations would not exist, and our communities would be the worse for it. People volunteer for different reasons. A passion for a cause, maybe something that has touched their lives. A desire to connect with other people, to get out and about and keep busy. A way to build confidence and skills. Whatever your reason for starting and continuing to volunteer, I would like to say a heartfelt thank you. Yesterday, we launched this year's Reigate and Banstead Volunteers Awards to recognise those in the borough who have selflessly gone above and beyond to help others over the past year. I would appreciate it if you could visit the Borough Council's website for more information on how you could nominate somebody who you feel deserves an award. You have just over a month to make a nomination as they close at the end of June. Reigate and Redhill U3A have organised this virtual event. You may not be familiar with this organisation, but within the borough there are over 1,500 members of U3A, making the most of life with the aim of remaining mentally, physically and socially active. They are part of a national organisation giving members who are no longer in full-time employment opportunities to develop interests, make new friends and have some fun. The U3A are totally run by volunteers, by members, for members. They have not let the pandemic stop them and have found ways using technology to help each other keep in touch and continue to enjoy their interests. Some examples of what they've been doing follow in a video. So a big thank you to the members of the U3A for their contribution to the life of this borough.
From the very beginning of the pandemic, it became apparent there were three real needs for people in our local community, and that was around food support, pharmacy support and befriending. And we worked originally to develop a directory to support people to access that support from the community. But we felt there was a need for us to step in and provide some of that support. So we set the Harlequin up as a massive food store, and we began delivering through our wonderful volunteers food packs to people who were in emergency need. We also supported local pharmacies by providing volunteers who went in and helped them with their deliveries to people who were self-isolating, clinically extremely vulnerable, who couldn't come out. We helped get medicine to them. And we also set up a befriending service, so offering online telephone support to people who were lonely and isolated. Our biggest number of volunteers have been for the vaccination centres, and we've had hundreds of volunteers, so sort of at the tail end of the pandemic. But for things like the food and pharmacy, we had around 70 volunteers taking part in that. The council hasn't got a great history of working with volunteers. We work really strongly in partnership with other organisations who tend to do that work. But I think the pandemic brought out the need for additional support. So I think that was our way of helping our partners who were struggling under a kind of torrent of additional need.
I've been shopping for elderly neighbours during the pandemic. I've been walking neighbours' dogs.
Doing a lot of driving, delivering for prescription work up at Tabworth, delivering prescriptions.
Taking people to doctors' appointments, hospitals, chiropractors, that sort of thing.
What the shop needed was the ability to resell electrical goods to the public. So that's where I came in to test the various items that have been donated and basically make sure they were okay.
And then through VARB, actually, I found a number of other things I could do. Was working with the fire service, delivering or helping with the delivery of PPE, both to care homes and things like that round Surrey.
A lot of deliveries which were far and wide, and found myself driving up roads. I've now understood what it's like to be a delivery driver, given a long road without any numbers, just names, and yeah, you're curb crawling looking for houses. It's crazy.
Then I joined CAB, Citizens Advice Bureau, as a generalist advisor. Really interesting. I mean, in the early days when I went, you could be doing anything from looking up how to get a fishing license in East Grinstead to something far more serious. I do remember when I started to do it on my own, my very first client was a young woman with 2 small children whom she brought in with her. She was held together by grit, this young woman. She had the inevitable Sainsbury's bag, which one learnt to dread because it held all the bills and things that hadn't been paid, and somehow it was always a Sainsbury's bag, and as it got emptied out on the desk, you thought, oh, there's my morning. But this poor lady cried as she told me her tale of woe, and I thought, how brave to come and cry in front of a stranger.
I remember taking one lady to an optician's appointment, and she was most insistent that I parked on the high street, bang outside the optician's. So I rather gently, she was well into her 90s. She'd been very independent lady. She'd been a Wren in the war, radios, signals and so on and so forth. Quite a high-powered role, I gather, but very much knew her own mind and everybody else's as well. So he gave me clear instructions. She wanted to be parked bang outside the optician's. So I explained to her that might not be totally possible, but I would do my best. So anyway, we got to the optician. Needless to say, it was rammed with cars. You can stop there, she said, just there. And I said, well, I can't actually, because it's blocking an entranceway to the back of the shops. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So anyway, she cowed me into submission. I parked and let her out and took her back. And she was a sweet lady, very entertaining. And at the end, her parting shot was, that was very kind of you. She said, but you'd have been useless in the war. She said, you're just too anxious and get uptight. So that was a helpful instruction for the future.
But the people I've met that I've befriended, I've got 3 people that I call every day, every week. And again, that's been so humbling, listening to their stories, listening to what they've been going through, listening to their life stories as well. Of young people right through to elderly. I've become expert on motorised scooters because I'm trying to source motorised scooters for one of my ladies.
I decided to volunteer to be a telephone counsellor. The most recent client is a lady who is suffering with Parkinson's disease. So she's been shielding. I found a link to a Parkinson's group that were with a virtual coffee morning. So I sent her the details. And
a nice lady called Ruth Warren, who is something to do with the church in Tadworth. She phoned me up, and after a while she said, "Oh, you would be absolutely ideal. And the guy I'd like you to telephone befriend is a blind man living in Tadworth." So I phoned him up, and we got on like a house on fire, because he was a motorbike rider, had been, and at the time I was still riding a motorbike, which I sold 6 months ago. So we had lots to talk about.
And the lady that I had, lovely soul, she really was. She couldn't go out at all. She had a carer, but her family were very scattered around, you know, in America and alike. So I used to pop round there once a week, and we'd have a little natter, and I'd make a note of what was in the news, you know, what latest topics were, maybe things on the telly, and we'd go through stuff like that. Because she didn't go out, you know, you have to try and make some conversation, really. But she was very, very interesting, and I used to make little notes in my diary so that the following week we could carry on some of those discussions, perhaps.
My name is Lisa Irwin. I'm the Volunteer Centre Manager for Voluntary Action Reigate and Banstead. We provide advice and information to voluntary, community and faith sectors in the Reigate and Banstead area. We also bring organisations together to share experiences and build partnerships. We promote volunteering and help individuals and teams find the right volunteer roles with local organisations, and also support good practice in volunteer management, and are also proud to celebrate the contribution made by the amazing volunteers in the borough. Roles, for example, that we have available are befriender roles, charity shop assistants, trustee roles, knitters for cancer patients, drivers, mentors, minute takers, environmental opportunities, if you like the outdoors, gardening, yoga, Pilates teacher, we have everything. So if you're interested in volunteering, then do get in touch. We also have some micro volunteering roles. These are convenient and easy ways to get involved, as this can be done anywhere and anytime with no commitment and minimum formality. Benefits of volunteering: improves your mental health, and as the saying goes, doing good does you good. And when you do something good, you feel happier. And when you feel happier, that is really good for your mental health. You can also gain skills, gain training. It's also good for your CV. You can gain vocational experience, make new friends, new people, especially if you're new to the area. It also can keep you busy. So if you're interested in volunteering, do get in touch. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
I then was asked if I could do some delivering for hot meals, again to people who were isolating, keeping out of harm's way. And that was from the Harlequin Theatre in Redhill. And I was doing deliveries down in Hawley. And people very, very much grateful for having their lunches delivered.
We have lunch clubs, some that are sort of, I think, quarterly, some that are sort of once a month or whatever. And that again is for elderly people that aren't able to get out.
I'm the local coordinator of a group who take the elderly out once a month for basically people who live alone and are over 75, to hostesses who provide tea and cake and that all-important social interaction. Obviously, we haven't been able to do this in the pandemic, but what we have done is continue with what one calls delivered teas. One of my drivers provides sandwiches and savouries, and I make cakes and provide a fresh fruit salad in a jam jar. It's amazing how much fruit you can get in a jam jar, but it works very well. We gather on my doorstep and put our picnics together, and then my drivers go off to deliver them to the people. And it's a real highlight of their month that somebody's remembering them and giving them some food which they haven't had to prepare for themselves.
And I also started volunteering at Merced and Mix. They work with food surplus partners, supermarkets, their excess food, and instead of throwing it away, it's turned into delicious nutritional meals. A couple of weeks ago, we produced 140 meals in a day, and the cafe's not open at the moment, so all the food is delivered. I also work at a food bank in Reigate once a week. It's amazing in this apparently wealthy borough that we live in, that there are people who can benefit from a food bank. And it's lovely to see the donations turned into shopping going out to the people who need it.
I was asked if I would become a governor of the Victoria Almshouses, who have properties in Reigate and in Redhill. And I've been a trustee just over 20 years.
And I volunteer for VARB, Voluntary Action Reigate and Banstead, as a treasurer, and that came in my life at a very critical point when I was looking for a job, and I was unemployed for like 7 months. So Universal Credit actually told me that there was volunteering opportunity because of COVID. There was so much going on. And I had trained with this lady called Lily as well. She was very supportive. I actually had like about 6 months training. No, 6 months, about 1 or 2 months of training. I went in every Sunday to do the bookkeeping. So that gave me very thorough experience. So then I was able to talk about that in all my interviews.
Volunteering, well, in a formal way, if you wish, in the UK happened through VARB. And initially, it was a call for a trustee member for Citizens Advice Reigate and Banstead. And I applied for that position and I got it. So I am now a trustee for cards. And
started working with a charity called Sight for Surrey, and they work with people that have visual impairments and hearing impairments. And to start with, when I first started working for them about 3 years ago, I was just a volunteer driver. But about 18 months ago, I decided, much to the glee, I think, of a friend of mine, Sandra, who actually got me involved with them. She works for the charity. So about 18 months ago, I became a trustee with Sight for Surrey. And for the first meeting, I think we had in person in their offices, and then ever since then it's been on Zoom because of the COVID restrictions. And because of my background in business, I was seconded onto the finance committee, basically.
I have volunteered with Girl Guiding for a bit more than 30 years. And during that time, I've been a brownie leader, a guide leader, a rainbow leader, and a district commissioner. Scouts and Guides are the most amazing worldwide family. And you'll find that scouting and guiding tends to run in families. In my mother's family, there were many Scouts and Guides, but when my own daughters became brownies, that's when I volunteered, and I've been volunteering ever since.
Concern Banstead is a local charity and we are totally independent. So we're not part of Age UK or Age UK Surrey or Help the Aged. We provide our services to older people who live in the north side of the borough of Reigate and Banstead. The people in the main we provide our services are the frailer older people. So it could be somebody as young as in their late 50s who has maybe had a stroke or a long-term illness. And we have several clients in their late 90s, one who is due to have her 100th birthday in the next couple of weeks. We have volunteers that will take people for medical appointments. Now that's everything from a 3-hour hospital visit up to St George's, possibly at Tooting, to the dentist or the optician or to the GP. We have a community garden that people can visit in the spring and summer months. We have a large number of volunteers, over 80 volunteers, all of whom are active and doing stuff. And when I worked it out last year, I think we average about 110 hours per week of volunteer time. Well, if you cost that out at £10 an hour, that is a massive benefit. Compared with all those volunteers, we have a full-time equivalent of just over 2 members of staff. We are very much a volunteer organisation. We just could not exist without the services they provide. And we've had drivers taking people this year to for their vaccinations. During the height of lockdown last year in April, May, we developed a shopping service and we had volunteers out delivering shopping twice a week to I think we were just up to about 100 people who were receiving that service. We provide befrienders to elderly people in the community who are lonely and really want to see somebody face to face. Of course, they've been busy working over the phone for over the last 18 months or whatever it is. But our volunteers, well, there would be no Age Concern Banstead without them, and they do so much for us. It's quite astounding, I think, how much people are prepared to do.
I was lucky enough to be invited to volunteer at Reigate and Banstead Women's Aid in their refuge for women and their children fleeing domestic abuse. So my main role was and is, when I go back after the pandemic, supporting school-aged children. My first impression of the children wasn't what I was expecting. I found relaxed, happy children there, and I think that was an indication of them feeling that they were in a safe environment.
I've been volunteering since 2006, mainly for one particular charity, which is based in Leatherhead, which is Rainbow Trust, who support families who have a child, or sadly children, who have life-threatening or terminal illness.
I started doing quite a while back Bereavement Cafe. That is a really, really useful service in, you know, that people, they get into a situation, I think, when they lose a loved one, perhaps that they want to chat about them, and perhaps that they feel that sometimes maybe not that they're boring people, but they want to maybe keep repeating the same thing, or they maybe want to share their experience and understand what other people, how they've coped with things maybe.
And then my husband contacted dementia, and in that time in Banstead, there was a dementia administrator who we got involved with. and she suggested that we went to what they called the Tuesday Club once a week. When he was no longer coming, I was asked to go as a volunteer, which I gratefully accepted. We meet once a week in Banstead for, in normal times, 12 couples and quite a few carers. And it's just a wonderful day to be with people who maybe have no outsiders to talk to, and to be able to talk to the people with dementia who are all so different. And the carers like talking to each other.
I have been volunteering up at Gatton Park before the pandemic all happened. Usual Thursday afternoon sort of park management stuff.
And for the last 11 or 12 years, I have been volunteer gardener at East Surrey Hospital. And I was prompted to do this. My husband had a lot of health problems. He had a 2-month stay in East Surrey Hospital at one time. And I looked out at the garden and I thought, if I was a patient in this hospital and I saw the state of those gardens, I would worry about what sort of care I was going to get. And I told the staff nurse this, and she said, well, why don't you volunteer? So I said, I will. So I went along, volunteered. They'd never had a volunteer gardener before. They were very pleased to have me, but they didn't know what to do with me. And they suggested that they sent me on a course to learn how to use shears and secateurs, which I laughed at. And they looked at me and said, oh, just get on with it. The Friends of East Surrey picked up what I was doing, and they now give me an annual budget, and I can just ask for more or less what I need. So they have been absolutely brilliant. I just feel very sad that we haven't been able to go in since last March. We have no knowledge of when we are going to be able to go in.
One of the things I did was reading for the blind. Now it's called the Talking Newspapers. Of course, once the pandemic started, that all came to an end.
I've also worked at Poles and Lacey as a volunteer at the drama festival and stewarding at various events, so throughout themed events and the children's activities.
As for voluntary work, I was in a local school for about 20 years, one day a week, help with reading and maths and everything like that, which I enjoyed.
I'm volunteering. I'm about to go back tomorrow to Oxfam Bookshop in Reigate, which I'm quite excited about, because I also am a library direct volunteer, which helps people who can't get to the library anymore. So sometimes I've taken the person to the library. Sometimes I choose books for a person and then deliver them. That just about continued during lockdown until the library is totally closed.
The members of Reigate and Redhill U3A have a thriving tradition of volunteering to help others in society, where they can put their vast wealth of knowledge and expertise to good use. A few years ago at a coffee morning, several members explained the roles they undertook. The range was amazing, from being on the board of governors of the Victoria Almshouses, helping with the Diamond Centre for the Disabled Riders, helping young families by way of the Home Start charity, and various volunteering roles at East Surrey Hospital. We spread the word by having a volunteer folder with information on various volunteering opportunities at each monthly meeting. In normal times, I worked out that the 900 members of our U3A contributed a staggering 267 weeks, i.e. over 5 years of help to each other each year.
One of my favourite memories is early January. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold at one of the vaccination centres, standing outside but welcoming all these often very elderly patients who are absolutely dressed up into their Sunday best. We had lots of suits and ties and hats and amazing smiling faces, where a lot of these people haven't actually hadn't been out of their house for a long
First
time.
one actually was at the Cannon site on New Year's Eve, and a lot of quite elderly people, because it was right in the beginning, the first tranche of people coming through. And just to put them at ease, I welcomed them at the door and said, welcome to the strangest New Year's Eve party you'll ever attend.
One of the things that made me smile is that in a high-vis jacket, which I've never ever worn before, general members of the public just come along and asked you anything. And once they realised that you were working in the testing centre, had questions like, when's the pandemic going to end? To a question of, is McDonald's open around the corner?
And yes, there were occasions when people would stay a little bit longer, or you would see the waiting room and literally just became a room of chatter. Everybody was chatting with everybody. They were asking questions from, where is your accent from, to where.
One of the things that I've done is one Saturday I volunteered for the vaccine bus. I had no idea where it was going to be. And then it turned out it was in the car park at Merced and Mix. And it was a cold day, and they'd produced and left hot soup for us. So instead of maybe grabbing a cup of coffee during the 4-hour shift, we were given restaurant quality mushroom soup to eat instead. And it was really lovely.
Oh, she was 103, that lady. Yes, and she'd been shielding since last March, and she was 103, and she came in and had the vaccination, and basically didn't want to go. She was happy to sit there for her 15 minutes with her daughter, and just didn't want to leave. She was so happy to be out and chatting.
Is Michael Cockett, and I am coming to the end of my term as chair of Reigate and Redhill U3A. It has been an eventful term of office. For the past 18 months, our aim has been to maintain as much activity as possible, inevitably, most of it online. Today is our National U3A Day, chosen to coincide with National Volunteers Week. We're very happy to have contributed to Reigate and Banstead's Volunteers Week by making this video. A U3A Day had been planned for last year with outdoor activities and entertainment throughout Reigate and Redhill, but had to be postponed. This year, live events have still not been possible, but we've decided to go ahead anyway, but mostly confined to the screen. So here is a celebration of our U3A, with the hope that we will soon be returning to a full range of activities. At the heart of the U3A are the group activities. The vast majority of members are in at least one group. For example, I am in a book group, an art appreciation group, a French improvers group, and I am the group leader for narrative writing. You have already seen some of our members because they are also volunteers in the community. And here they are, telling you about their U3A activities, alongside a full list of all our current groups.
I'm involved in family history and current affairs.
The book club. The poetry group that I belong to has not been able to join on Zoom.
90s to learn to play bridge, current affairs group, and belong to a music group.
Reigate and Redhill U3A creative writing group.
And I'm the group leader for the local history group.
Do the French improvers class.
And currently I'm a member of 3 ukulele groups, one in East Grinstead, one in Redhill and Reigate, and one in the Wirral. And I also play handbells with the East Grinstead group.
Earth and Environmental Sciences, active in the park, beginners bridge class, and a local history group.
Of those groups, over 50 have remained active during the lockdown, and others are stirring into life again. Here is an impression of some of the other activities of our U3A, both before and during the lockdown, accompanied by our very own Middle Eight, with their lockdown version of Careless Love.
Careless love, you fly through my head like wine. You break the life of many a poor girl, and you let me spoil this life of mine. Love, oh love, careless love, in your clutches of desire, you made me brave, a manly true vow, then you set my very soul on fire. Love, love, careless love, all my happiness be wrecked, 'cause you fill my heart with weary old blues. Now I'm walking and talking to myself.